Ever wondered why some Caribbean nations are severing ties with the British monarchy while others remain loyal? What makes these tropical paradise islands suddenly demand independence from their colonial past? Is there something driving this dramatic shift across the Caribbean? You've probably heard of countries like Jamaica, Barbados, and Belize being called Commonwealth realms. But what does that actually mean for their future? You'd think that Commonwealth membership provides these nations with special benefits, trade advantages, and international support, right? Except it doesn't, and it's more complicated than you might imagine. Let's unpack what's fueling this Caribbean exodus from the Commonwealth monarchy and why this moment is building with unprecedented momentum across the archipelago. The Barbados Blueprint, leading the Caribbean Revolution. Red Local Barbados made history on November 30, 2021, by becoming a republic and removing Queen Elizabeth II as the head of state, and installing Dame Sandra Mason as the first president. This was no mere symbolism. It was a seismic tremor that shook the entire Caribbean. Dame Sandra Mason said, "The time has come to fully leave our colonial past behind," in her throne speech. "Barbadians want a Barbadian head of state," she went on. It was the ultimate statement of confidence in who we are and what we believe we can make happen. The decision was final. The Barbados Labour Party had a 2/3 majority in both houses and was able to pass the amendment to the Constitution without asking the people of Barbados via a national referendum. Barbados was the first Caribbean country to do so in nearly 3 decades, following the footsteps of Guyana, Dominica, and Trinidad and Tobago in the 1970s. The Barbados precedent showed that Commonwealth realms could become republics and remain in the Commonwealth, a model widely emulated by other countries in its region. Jamaica's revolutionary momentum. The domino effect begins. Jamaica is in the process of becoming a republic, with Foreign Minister Orlando Terrelonge stating that we still maintain our position that by 2025, we would have completed those reforms and removed the British monarch as head of state. The Constitution Amendment Republic Act 2024 was tabled in Parliament in December 2024 and was stated by the then Minister of Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahou Forte, to be a historic moment in Jamaica's history. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has prioritized Jamaica becoming a republic, with his 14-member Constitutional Reform Committee in place to govern the process as it takes effect by the year 2025. In 2020, a poll showed that 55% of Jamaicans favored republicanism, which would entail a 2/3 majority each in both legislative chambers, followed by a national referendum. The significance of Jamaica cannot be overstated. Its leaving would be massive for the Caribbean and the wider world, as legacy of British imperialism permeated the state that was once amongst its largest colonies. The regional Republican wave, Six Nations signal intent. The movement goes far beyond Barbados and Jamaica. 6 countries, Belize, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Lucia, Kitts and Nevis, have indicated plans to depose the British monarch as head of state and establish republics. Linda Straker, a journalist from Grenada, added, "There's a marry the leader of CARICOM and members following each other. I won't be surprised if, by 2024, we are a republic in the style of Barbados." Royal commentator Joe Little said other countries would inevitably follow Barbados. Today, there are 15 Commonwealth realms where King Charles III is head of state, but this number could be greatly reduced as Caribbean countries go democratic. This would mark a seismic shift, as nations get what they've been asking for: the choice to directly elect their head of state, without interference from a foreign institution. The colonial reckoning, slavery, reparations, and historical justice. Demands for slavery, reparations, and recognition of colonial atrocities are entangled in the push for republicanism. Caribbean nations are demanding King Charles apologize for the royal family's past role in the transatlantic slave trade as part of a commitment to reparations. In recent years, artists and speakers have decried the memorial to millions of enslaved Africans, whose labor enriched Great Britain. The UK's National Archives report that British ships brought about 3 million slaves across the Atlantic, with aggregate wealth averaging $23 trillion according to the American Society for International Law. More than 10 times as many were shipped to the Caribbean as to mainland North America. When Prince William and Kate and Prince Edward and Sophie visited in March and April 2022, they were met by protests at every stop, with protesters calling for formal apologies and reparations. All three Caribbean nations visited had adopted the united position in seeking reparatory justice. The CARICOM Reparations Commission makes the case for payment of reparations by the governments of all former colonial powers for the crimes against humanity of native genocide, the transatlantic slave trade and a racialized system of chattel slavery, the economic reality, Commonwealth benefits versus independence costs. Despite assumptions Commonwealth membership does not deliver great economic benefits, some consider the Commonwealth essentially a neo-colonialist project, with promises failing to deliver expected benefits. Socio-political change had been left to the institutions, the IMF and the World Bank. University of the West Indies lecturer Jelani Nyaya said, "We pinned so much hope on those arrangements for serious socio-political transformation, and it has just made us more financially imbalanced." He noted that such trade deals mean Jamaican sugar is cheaper in the UK than in Jamaica. One big change for republics like Barbados is they will no longer need the monarch's approval for diplomatic appointments. This is real sovereignty in international relations, not symbolic independence. The Commonwealth has no multilateral trade deal among members. Though trade with each other is up to 50% higher than with non-members, the UK government says, with conditions attached. The cultural identity revolution, reclaiming national pride. For many from the Caribbean, severing ties with the colonial past is ultimately about self-identity and steering their own future. The drive to decouple from the British monarchy has been accompanied by an awakening of Black consciousness globally, largely propelled by the Black Lives Matter movement. According to Vereen Shepherd, chairperson of Jamaica's National Commission on Reparations, the move towards republicanism means it's now time for formerly colonized countries to make real their independence and take hold of their destiny. Royal insignia across the Commonwealth used racist iconography, and educational opportunities in Britain were advertised as better than what was available at home, which Nyaya believes continued a certain kind of genocidal approach to indigenous knowledge. The mobilization signals a shift away from external validation toward internal confidence, with Caribbean nations making clear they are capable of governing themselves entirely. The Commonwealth response and future implications. King Charles has admitted that if countries decide to be republics, it's a matter for the Australian people, signaling that the royal family believes it's up to different countries to decide for themselves about remaining part of the monarchy. In visiting, Charles has expressed regret over colonial brutality, but has not made formal apologies or promised reparations. Prior to 2007, a Commonwealth realm becoming a republic would have to reapply for membership, but this provision was discontinued, and Barbados could become the first nation to continue membership despite not being a constitutional monarchy. That institutional change has made the transition path more perceptible and less dangerous for other Caribbean states. The implications are not confined to the Caribbean. Members of the Government of Australia and New Zealand have each suggested they will soon become republics, and the Caribbean movement might set off copycat moves globally. The Commonwealth was back in fashion in Donald Trump's second term, as some countries looked for ways to work together that were not just of the old European mold. The Caribbean countries are already preparing to take advantage of the new global alliances and are not tied down by outdated colonial systems. The demography speaks for itself. The Commonwealth, an organization with 56 member states in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and Americas, the Pacific, and Europe, counts only 15 countries with the British monarch as head of state. The Caribbean exodus could remove single digits within the decade. CARICOM's Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations, under Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley's chairmanship, will be seeking negotiations with 10 European countries. Such coordinated moves show uncommon CARICOM solidarity in taking on colonially rooted legacies. The trend is like a generational change. Younger Caribbean generations born decades after independence wonder why their countries maintain symbolic connections with former colonial powers. They regard republicanism not as radical departure, but as evolutionary development towards full sovereignty. Furthermore, the global context matters. And beyond the Caribbean, calling for reparation is reaching around the world, with activists and politicians pressing the nations that slaved and colonized to be held accountable. The Caribbean countries are part of a larger international outcry against atrocities of the past and for justice today. These are the aspects pushing Caribbean countries further from the Commonwealth and monarchy. Jamaica, Barbados, Belize, and other Caribbean nations mark a move away from symbolic independence to true independence. These countries are historic in showing that small island states can overthrow centuries-old colonial structures and steer themselves in their own independent directions. Tell us what you think of this Caribbean Republican movement in the comments. While these countries share Commonwealth heritage, many feel that the movement for republicanism matters for independence and restitution. And oh, by the way, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more great stuff like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.